Hello and welcome back to my channel True Crime Chronicles. Here we go over true crime cases that have been solved, unsolved, or still under investigation. If you are new to my channel, please like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the notifications bell and click on all notifications. That way you are sent a notification each time I upload a new video. Content warning. This case and video contain graphic details of multiple homicide, including the murders of 2 children some viewers may find disturbing or distressing. Viewer discretion is advised. In the heart of Mormon country, a story unfolded that was so bizarre, so horrific, it seemed ripped from the pages of a dark thriller. It was a story that intertwined devout faith with dangerous fanaticism, parental love with unspeakable betrayal, and promises of heaven with the brutality of murder. This is not just a true crime story. It's a descent into a self-made hell, orchestrated by a man who claimed to speak for God, and a woman who believed she was a goddess. This is the full, detailed story of Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow, the Doomsday Killers. Our story begins not with a crime, but with a convergence of 2 people whose shared delusions would have deadly consequences. Chad Daybell was, by all outward appearances, a pillar of his community. A married father of 5 from Springville, Utah, he worked as a gravedigger and cemetery sexton before finding his calling as a writer and publisher. But Chad's books weren't just fiction. He peddled a fringe version of Mormonism, claiming near-death experiences allowed him to receive visions from beyond the veil. He prophesied a specific doomsday, July 2020, and gained a following among Mormon preppers. He spoke of a complex scoring system for people, labeling them as light or dark. Most disturbingly, he and his inner circle began to believe that dark people could become possessed, turning into what they called zombies, and the only way to free their soul was to kill their body. Lori Vallow. A beautiful, charismatic mother of 3, her life was a series of upheavals. Multiple marriages, a bitter custody battle with her 3rd husband, Joseph Ryan, and a growing obsession with the end times. When she discovered Chad's writings, she found her purpose. They met at a religious conference in October 2018, and the connection was electric. Chad told Lori they had been married in multiple past lives, that he was the Apostle James, and she was his wife, Elena. He convinced her she was an exalted goddess, destined to help him lead the faithful during the apocalypse. Their bond was immediate, and it was secret. They began an affair, communicating with burner phones, their beliefs spiraling into a shared psychosis that justified any action in the name of their divine mission. The first obstacle to their destiny was Lori's 4th husband, Charles Vallow. A successful businessman, Charles saw Lori's radical shift firsthand. She told him he was possessed by a dark spirit named Ned Schneider. Terrified for his life and the safety of their adopted son, JJ, who was autistic, Charles filed for divorce and changed his $1 million life insurance policy to benefit his sister, Kay Woodcock. On July 11, 2019, Charles went to Lori's home in Chandler, Arizona, to pick up JJ. A confrontation ensued. Lori's brother, Alex Cox, shot and killed Charles. Cox claimed self-defense, saying Charles had hit him with a baseball bat, but police found Lori's behavior chillingly calm. She didn't call 911 for 45 minutes and was seen at a Burger King and a Walgreens soon after. Investigators later uncovered a text from Lori to Alex telling him to be like Nephi, a biblical hero who killed a wicked king. To them, Charles wasn't a man, he was a zombie. With Charles gone, Lori moved to Rexburg, Idaho to be near Chad. But 2 more zombies remained, her own children. Tylee Ryan, 16, was last seen alive on September 8, 2019, at Yellowstone National Park. Her brother JJ Vallow, 7, was last seen on September 22nd. After that, they simply vanished. Lori told friends JJ was with a relative, and that Tylee was away at college. But she never enrolled them in new schools. Instead, she continued to collect their Social Security survivor benefits. The final obstacle was Chad's wife, Tammy. A healthy, vibrant school librarian, her death on October 19, 2019, was anything but natural. Chad claimed she died in her sleep from a cough, but just 2 weeks later, he and Lori married on a beach in Hawaii. The pattern was now impossible to ignore: a trail of bodies, a sudden marriage, and 2 missing children. The facade began to crumble in late November 2019. JJ's grandmother, Kay Woodcock, unable to reach him, requested a welfare check. Police visited Lori's Rexburg townhouse and found Chad and Alex Cox there. Both acted suspiciously, with Chad claiming he hardly knew Lori. When police contacted Lori, she claimed JJ was in Arizona with a friend, Melanie Gibb. But when Gibb was called, she said that wasn't true. Panicked, Lori and Chad fled to Hawaii. But the media spotlight was now intense. The Doomsday Mom was front-page news. In January 2020, reporter Nate Eaton confronted the couple on a Hawaiian beach. Their refusal to answer spoke volumes. In February 2020, Lori was arrested for deserting her children. But the mystery deepened when a key player died. Lori's brother, Alex Cox, was found dead in December 2019, from what was ruled natural causes. He would never face trial for his role as the alleged triggerman. The breakthrough came from digital forensics. The FBI tracked Alex Cox's cell phone. It placed him at Chad Daybell's property on the nights following Tylee and JJ's disappearances. Even more damning, on the morning after Tylee vanished, Chad texted his wife, Tammy, that he'd shot a raccoon in the yard and buried it in the pet cemetery. On June 9, 2020, investigators descended on Chad's property. As they began to dig, Chad tried to flee in his car, but was chased down and arrested. In the pet cemetery, they found the burned and dismembered remains of Tylee Ryan. Near a fire pit, carefully buried under rocks and planks, they found JJ's body, wrapped in duct tape and plastic. He had died of asphyxiation. The children Lori Vallow was sworn to protect had been murdered and buried in the backyard of the man she called a prophet. The subsequent trials peeled back the layers of the conspiracy. Prosecutors argued it was a plot fueled by money, power, and sex. They killed for life insurance, Social Security benefits, and to remove anyone who stood in the way of their apocalyptic fantasy. Lori's trial in 2023 was a spectacle. Her defense claimed she was under Chad's spell. But the evidence was overwhelming. Friends testified how Lori labeled her family as zombies. Text messages revealed chilling discussions about zombies and a perfectly orchestrated plan. She was found guilty on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without parole. At her sentencing, she gave a bizarre statement, claiming Jesus knew no one was murdered and that her children were happy in heaven. Chad's trial in 2024 was the final reckoning. His defense portrayed him as a duped follower, manipulated by a seductive Lori. But the jury saw through it. They heard how he gave the religious justification for murder and profited from the deaths. He was found guilty of all charges, including the first-degree murder of all 3 victims. For his central role in the conspiracy, the state of Idaho sentenced him to death. But Lori's legal journey wasn't over. Extradited to Arizona, she chose to represent herself in 2 more trials for the murder of Charles Vallow and the attempted murder of her niece's husband, Brandon Boudreaux. Her performance in court was chaotic, combative, and often delusional. She was convicted in both cases, receiving 2 additional life sentences in July 2025. The Doomsday Mom would never be a free woman again. So, how did 2 seemingly ordinary people commit such atrocities? Psychologists point to a perfect storm of factors. Folie à deux, a shared psychotic disorder where delusions are transmitted from a dominant figure to a more passive one. Chad was the visionary, Lori the executor. Narcissism, both exhibited extreme narcissism. Chad's need for significance and Lori's belief in her own divinity made them feel above moral and legal laws. Theology as a weapon. They didn't just believe in their faith, they weaponized it. By framing their victims as zombies, they dehumanized them, turning murder into a holy act. The tragedy is absolute. Tylee Ryan, a bright young woman on the cusp of adulthood, and JJ Vallow, a sweet, vulnerable boy with special needs, were betrayed by the person they trusted most. Tammy Daybell, a beloved wife and mother, was killed for being an inconvenience. Charles Vallow died trying to protect his son. The evidence that exposed Lori and Chad, the zombie texts. The most damning digital evidence came from text messages between Lori, Chad, and her brother, Alex Cox. They referred to their intended victims as zombies and used code names. Charles Vallow was Hiplos, or Ned. Tammy Daybell was Viola. In one crucial exchange, Lori texted Alex, telling him to be like Nephi, a biblical figure who killed a wicked man. This was sent just days before Alex killed Charles Vallow. The romance novel. Texts. Just days after Charles was murdered, Chad sent Lori a series of text messages that investigators dubbed a romance novel. It detailed a sexual encounter between characters named James and Elena, the names Chad claimed they had in a past life. This showed their callousness and deepening bond immediately after a homicide. The raccoon text. On the morning of September 9th, 2019, the day after Tylee was last seen, Chad texted his wife, Tammy, "I've had an interesting morning. I felt I should burn all of the limb debris by the fire pit before it got too soaked by the coming storms. While I did so, I spotted a big raccoon along the fence. I hurried and got my gun and shot it. It is now in the pet cemetery." Fun times. Prosecutors argued this was a coded message about disposing of Tylee's body. The limb debris was a reference to her dismemberment. Cell phone pings. Alex Cox's cell phone was the key to finding the bodies. His phone pinged at Chad Daybell's property in the early morning hours of September 9th, 2019, after returning from Yellowstone. It then pinged again at the property on the morning of September 23rd, 2019, the day after JJ was last seen. This digital breadcrumb trail led the FBI directly to the burial sites. Internet searches. The digital footprint was extensive. Alex Cox searched for how to load ammunition, ballistic trajectory calculators, what kind of gun can use a 7.62 bullet, the type used in the attempt on Brandon Boudreaux. After the Boudreaux shooting, he and Lori both searched for shooting in Gilbert, AZ. JJ Vallow's remains. JJ was found buried near a pond. His body was carefully wrapped in black plastic and duct tape. The cause of death was asphyxiation from the duct tape placed over his mouth. Crucially, Lori Vallow's hair was found on the duct tape used to bind JJ, directly placing her at the scene of his burial preparation. Alex Cox's fingerprints were also on the plastic. Tylee Ryan's remains. Tylee's remains were found in a fire pit in an area the family called the Pet Cemetery. Her body had been burned and dismembered. The condition was so severe that the cause of death was listed as homicide by unspecified means. A pickaxe and a shovel seized from Chad's property were found to have Tylee's DNA on them, indicating they were used in the dismemberment and burial process. The attempt on Tammy Daybell. On October 9th, 2019, Tammy reported a man shot at her with what she thought was a paintball gun. Cell data placed Alex Cox near the Daybell home that day. Police later found an AR-15 at Cox's home that matched the description of the weapon Tammy saw. Prosecutors believe this was a failed murder attempt, and the gun either jammed or was unloaded. Beyond the crime scenes, the evidence revealed motives of greed and a chilling lack of emotion. Financial gain. This was a key motive. Life insurance. After Tammy's murder, Chad collected $430,000 in life insurance payouts. Social Security benefits. After her children were dead, Lori continued to collect their Social Security survivor benefits, totaling thousands of dollars. Charles Vallow's policy. Charles had changed his $1 million life insurance policy away from Lori because he feared for his life. Her motive to have him killed for the money was clear, even if she ultimately didn't collect. Suspicious behavior and statements. Lori's calm after Charles's death. Police testified that Lori was nonchalant after Charles was shot. She didn't call 911 for 45 minutes and was later seen at a Burger King. The rushed marriage. Chad and Lori married in Hawaii just 2 weeks after Tammy's death. Lori had searched for wedding dresses online on the day of Tammy's funeral. Lori's hair. As mentioned, Lori's hair on the duct tape binding JJ's body was perhaps the most personally damning piece of evidence against her, shattering any claim she was unaware of his fate. The casting testimony. Friends like Melanie Gibb and Zulema Pastenes testified about the group's castings to drive out dark spirits. Zulema stated that Alex Cox told her he didn't feel bad about killing Charles Vallow because he was a zombie. This testimony provided the jury with the why, the religious fanaticism that justified the murders in their minds. For Lori, 2023, verdict, guilty on all counts. For Chad, 2024, verdict, guilty on all counts, including first-degree murder. In the end, it wasn't just one piece of evidence, but the totality of it all. The digital messages planning the deaths, the financial records revealing the motive, the cell phone pings leading to the bodies, and the forensic evidence on the duct tape and shovel. It created a perfect and horrifying storm of proof. Chad Daybell and Lori Vallow built their own apocalyptic world of fantasy and divine purpose. But in a court of law, it was the undeniable, tangible evidence that brought their deadly delusion to a final, just end. Even with the convictions and the overwhelming evidence, this case leaves us with haunting questions that go beyond the courtroom. Could this tragedy have been prevented? If friends or family had intervened earlier when the beliefs started to turn extreme, would it have made a difference? Was Alex Cox merely a pawn, groomed and manipulated by his sister and Chad to do the unthinkable? And perhaps the most chilling question of all, how does a mother look at her own children and see not the people she's supposed to love, but obstacles and zombies to be eliminated? The legal system has delivered its justice. Lori Vallow and Chad Daybell will spend the rest of their lives, and in Chad's case, potentially face death, behind bars for their monstrous crimes. But the story continues to fascinate and horrify us because it touches on the darkest corners of human nature: fanaticism, deception, and the ultimate betrayal. And that's why we want to hear from you. This is a case with so many layers, and everyone has a perspective. In the comments below, tell us what you think. Who do you believe was the true mastermind? Was Chad the manipulative cult leader, or was Lori an equal, willing participant? What piece of evidence stood out to you as the most damning? Was it the zombie texts, the raccoon message, or Lori's hair on the duct tape? What lasting impact do you think this case will have? Share your thoughts. And if you found this deep dive into the evidence informative, please help us continue to cover these complex stories by liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting the notification bell so you never miss an update. Until next time on True Crime Chronicles, stay vigilant, stay compassionate, and keep seeking truth.